All right, we first have to start by apologizing for starting behind schedule on the show today. But good afternoon, it's Flipside. I'm Daisy Leo Asikidi, your host, and today's edition of the show is going to be us focusing on the World Blood Donor Day. You know, June 14 is a very remarkable day in my life. It's my birthday, but that's not what makes it super special. What makes it extra special is because it's associated with a day, with something that gives life. You know, blood donation is a huge thing. It's a big deal. And it's something I've always been eager to do. Unfortunately, I'm yet to donate blood. Like, I've never donated blood, and I've always wanted to, but for some special reasons, I can't seem to be able to donate blood to anyone. But it's okay. It's a good one. For some, it might not be good because they won't get the blood, the extra blood I could give. But it's okay because we're still going to use the opportunity to create awareness, to let people know the importance of donating blood, the impact donation of blood can have in the community. And it's not only the blood that people are donating, that people talk about on a day like this. They're talking about red blood cells, they're talking about plasma, they're talking about other components that make up the blood. So it's not just the red liquid that we're talking about on the show today. I have a specialist that will join me to analyze the importance of blood donation on the show, a hematologist actually. But before you meet my guests, because they've been on the road doing a lot of publicity and sensitization, we're going to go on a quick break. When we return, you meet my guest, Oganete Jiri-Owigo, and we'll start talking.
This is the story of one drop of blood. This drop of blood started out in the body of Parry. When her friend Mariam was in labour and started losing a lot of blood, Parry didn't hesitate and donated blood to save her friend's life. That drop of blood, with many, many others, went from Parry to her friend Mariam, and Parry saved Mariam's life. It's also the story of another drop of blood. Manuel sees every day how accidents happen all the time. He feels a connection to his community and wants to do his part to contribute to the well-being of his people. Every 3 months, he goes to the clinic and donates blood. Manuel's blood drops go to hundreds of people who need them to survive. This is the story of millions of drops from millions of people that decided to make an act of solidarity by donating blood. Everywhere in the world, blood from millions of people who donate blood to their community are saving lives every day, providing a precious safeguard for patients and communities. Blood donation is an act of solidarity. Join the effort. Save lives.
All right, we need to donate to save lives. And I have an hematologist here, someone you've seen on television like a million times. You've seen him on different platforms, on the platform of the Red Cross and all and on and all, yes. But today he's coming based on his profession. He's an hematologist. In fact, you do a lot of things, I think. Oganete Jiri-Owigo is here with us in the studio, and we're going to talk about world blood donation. I know it's been a very busy day for you people.
Yes, it has. It has been a very
collecting blood up and down.
It's what we live to do.
Okay, so let's start with what's the significance of World Blood Donor Day is, and why it's so important for us to raise awareness today.
Okay, I want to start by rearranging your question.
Okay.
Why it's important that we donate blood, and before we come to the significance of the day. Blood is life, and that's a fact. If you spend one day in the hospital or in a very busy blood bank, you'd understand why people need to donate blood, because at the center of a lot of medical emergencies, trauma, surgeries, there's blood, right? So, and if you look at the diversity of emergencies that people have to deal with and life-threatening conditions and the need for blood against the shortfall, you'd realize that we cannot stop talking about the need for blood donation. And so in the wisdom of the World Health Organization and everybody who has ever understood this importance, they've decided that June 14th every year we should celebrate World Blood Donors Day as a way of raising awareness, because we need more persons to understand this need. Not a lot of persons are in the health sector, not a lot of persons are in the medical profession. So not a lot of persons understand this need for blood donation. So we need to continue to talk to them, and of course setting aside one day to emphasize that point is why we're here. And I want to commend you and of course your station for taking out this time to talk about this very important issue.
Okay, can you explain the process of blood donation from the screening to the distribution of the blood products, the people who give it, is it for free, and do the clinics also give it out for free, all of the information?
Okay, blood donation is many things, but the idea is one. Now, blood donation involves taking a donor's blood, or in some instances an autologous donor. So a person who is very well, who is very healthy, can maybe before a procedure, like maybe a surgical procedure, can decide to donate their own blood and then go for surgery, and if it's needed, they can transfuse back. That's what we call an autologous donor. However, blood donation is basically taking blood from a person and transfusing, preparing it for transfusion to another person. And I want to also say that everybody thinks that blood donation is just taking blood directly. Blood donation is not always whole blood donation, right? So essentially there are 4 different components that make your whole blood. Right, you have the red cells, erythrocytes, you have the white cells, leukocytes, you have platelets, and of course you have all of these cells dissolved in what you call plasma, which is the fluid part of blood. So essentially, these cells can be donated individually, right? Or you can donate whole blood and still extract these cells. There are many, many ways to it, right? And also, partly because as medicine and transfusion science is evolving, it's also obvious that the need of the patient is supreme. So you have instances where maybe when you do a thing like a full blood count and you find out that this patient's need is not necessarily whole blood. It needs this particular cell. Maybe for instance, maybe a cancer patient who is leukodepleted platelet, or even platelet is depleted. You may want to transfuse that particular component instead of overloading or overwhelming the patient with whole blood. Yeah. Do you understand? So that's a lot of improvement that blood transfusion has seen over the years. So it's possible to take whole blood from a donor. Obviously, you would screen first for safety reasons, and screening involves a lot of things. You have to check for a lot of things in the donor. So for persons who are worried that I want to donate blood, what if, or I don't know whether I go feed donate. Those sort of ideas exist in Nigeria, or persons who are going to receive blood transfusion and are worried about if the blood they're going to be given is safe and all that. There are a lot of screening efforts. Since you've asked the question, I would explain what screening involves. First thing that you should do, any professional would do in transfusion science, is first to check the apparent state of the donor. There are certain things that you would not even allow in a person who's going to donate blood. For example, a person who has a fresh tattoo, I would not even check if your blood is good, because these are risky behaviors that can endanger your blood. If you get a tattoo today, I am not going to go and take a test of the tattoo needle. You could have contracted something that would be in your blood, and we may not even check it or detect if we check today, right? So these are certain factors. A person who is hypertensive, we don't want to put you, exactly, we don't want to compromise you. A person who has certain other conditions, which of course due diligence require you to ask. A person who is currently on medications, certain kinds of medications. If, for instance, you are on anti-malaria, it makes no sense to be carrying malaria from you to add to the problem of the patient. So there are a lot of things that we can ask, and we trust that the donor will be sincere enough to answer. Before we now come to things like whether or not the donor is physically fit enough, or we'll talk about things like the blood type, right? So that's at the point where you have collected the blood, of course, a small portion, just a small pilot sample to test. So we'll check the blood type, if it's any of the ABO and Rhesus compatible group. So check that against the patient's blood to know if the donor is even qualified based on the blood type to donate. In some instances, it may even become necessary to even check the hemoglobin genotype of the donor. For example, if the patient, you are a sickle cell patient in crisis, you would usually want to transfuse AA genotype blood for a number of years. So you see that a sickle cell patient's parents may not be able to donate blood to the same patient. So these concerns exist. So a person should not be surprised when you are told in the hospital that you cannot donate blood to your child. It's because of the best interest of the patient. So when you move further from that, you want to check in some other instances, like I mentioned, when you need blood fractions, like platelets, for example, you want to do a full blood count of the donor to even check and be sure that that donor has the right amount. You do other things like checking the packed cell volume before we now even come about to screen for transfusion transmittable infections. You have to check for things like HIV, you have to check for things like hepatitis B and C, you have to check for things like syphilis. So when the donor and the donor's blood has passed all of these screening processes, you can now go further and then collect what we call bleed the donor into a blood bag, right? So obviously these things are in different sizes depending on the need of the patient, age, many other factors come to play. And then when that is done, we now have issues or concerns about storage and transfusion and all that. So ideally, blood has its temperature in which it should be stored, and obviously has the period in which it can be stored for viability and usefulness, right? So these are all of the processes that blood has to go through from collection before you can prepare it for transfusion.
Okay, someone asked a question and I have to put that down, is why people keep advocating for people to donate for free. Of course, they say it's illegal to even sell your blood.
True.
So why is it that we donate this blood for free and then the hospitals sell the blood to the patients?
Let me ask you a question. If I tell you that your blood, 1 pint of your blood is worth 1 million naira right now, and you're hungry, what will happen?
I'll give everything out.
So you see the problem. When you pay a person for their blood, and because you also consider the economic factor of Nigeria, you consider money mentality of human beings. When you pay for blood, you financially induce persons to donate blood. The next day they are hungry, they go and donate blood again. And by standard, any human being should donate blood no more frequently than 4 months. 3-4 months.
3-4 months.
Right? So if that's because of the regeneration time for your cells, for your own protection, and of course for the quality of blood that the patient needs to get. So if you have to donate blood more frequently than that, the quality of your blood that you are even going to, it may not even be enough for you. You put yourself at risk. And of course, what you are transfusing or you're going to be giving to the patient will not even be enough to provide improvement in their condition. And that's what happens when you induce donors, right? So global standard is blood should be gotten from voluntary, non-remunerated donors. So persons who are not doing this blood donation for money have no reason to donate irregularly. That's on the one hand. Then on the other hand, I talked about a lot of processes that blood has to undergo before it is prepared for transfusion in the patient. Blood bag costs money. As at 20, let's say 2-3 years ago, the value of the tests and investigations, if you go to a standard facility, would be put at the test that the donor has to undergo before they can be qualified to donate, was at least 12,000-15,000. The value of investigations, testing that they will do on your blood as a donor before they give to your patient, even when it's your own relative. I'm giving the ballpark figure. I'm not talking about consumables like syringes, cotton wool, spirit, the blood bag itself, storage. Not talking about all those things. So it costs money to provide healthcare, right? And the reality is the hospital or the facility, the blood bank, whatever, will spend money to go through these procedures. So most times when people have patients in the hospital and they are asked to pay because their patients receive blood, it's oftentimes the services
that they're paying for.
Yes, they're paying for, not necessarily the blood. But Nigerian factor, when you pay for anything, you assume you're paid for the entire thing. Right? So these are the reasons why a person may donate blood for free, and then at the point where that blood is being transfused, they have to pay a certain amount of money for it.
Okay, we're talking about the World Blood Donor Day. We're not done talking. We just started the discussion, but we'll go on a quick break. When we return, we'll talk some more.
On June the 14th, World Blood Donor Day, we'll be thanking all our voluntary blood donors. All over the world, there are people in need of blood transfusions. Who needs a blood transfusion? Some women during childbirth. Trauma cases, road accident victims who lose a lot of blood, for example. Or some children with malaria. To treat severe bleeding and severe anemia induced by malaria, blood transfusions are essential. But to have blood available, we need blood donors. Donors are accompanied by reassuring and mindful medical staff throughout the process. Once convinced, you'll need to know if you're eligible. You must be over 18 years old, your blood pressure must be normal, your hemoglobin level must be normal, you must weigh more than 45 kilos, you must not be taking any medication. Blood screening tests will be carried out. If all tests are negative, we can collect a maximum of 450 millilitres of blood. The volume of blood collected will be given to one adult or up to 3 children. After your blood donation, just a few minutes rest and a snack and you'll be ready to leave. The volume of blood you have given will be restored within a matter of hours. It'll take several days to regenerate the red blood cells. Thanks to your blood donation, our patients will be able to receive potentially life-saving blood transfusions and should be able to go home a couple of days later. Thank you for donating your blood. See you in 3 months' time.
So for those who are going to be donating today, that is my birthday. In 3 months' time, you donate again, okay? Between 3 to 4 months, depends on how quick you recover, how well you're eating and all of that. So I have a hematologist in the studio with me, Ogenete Juriwigo, and we're talking about the 2023 World Blood Donor Day. And before the break, you were talking about earlier, you made mention of some restrictions, which you said a fresh tattoo, meaning one that is old, could work. And then you also talked about certain medications. Are there other restrictions that could stop people from donating?
So I'm being careful because, and I know that the audience is very diverse. I'm talking about these things loosely, such that a person does not present false information at the point of donation. So yes, fresh tattoo is a bit of a concern. There's a certain duration that is allowed. But speaking strictly about restrictions, there are many, many factors that would exclude a person. I talked about apparent health condition. Gender may be a factor, and I'll tell you how. For example, women on their menstrual period may not be able to donate blood, partly because, well, obviously they are losing blood, so that's going to be a challenge, and you do not want to stress them any further. That's on the one hand. A woman who is breastfeeding obviously would not donate blood. So you see, like, it would appear a lot of gender-based segregation issues at play. A woman who is pregnant cannot donate blood. So these are extenuating circumstances that would exclude women in some instances. So that's one significant thing that a lot of persons do not consider. So most times when you go to places to donate blood, they are looking for a man. They would prefer a man because most men would not have fluctuating packed cell volumes or PCVs as women will have. So certain periods leading on to their periods or coming from their periods are points where the packed cell volume will fluctuate. So these are other situations that would exclude an individual beyond the ones I already mentioned.
Interesting. Yeah. Maybe that's why I've not been able to donate blood, because every time I go, by the time they start, they don't even test my blood. From the question, they've already disqualified me.
No, but again, now today's your birthday. I would encourage you. Maybe you can make it a birthday thing. So on your birth month, you know that every birth month, you know a particular point where you must donate blood. So you go and donate. So while you're challenging our listeners,
I have a
encourage you
strong
to.
reason I would go, but I know that when they start, I have a reason why I know they will still say no today. Whatever.
Well, you will donate blood today.
Okay, I'm going with you, right?
I would encourage you to donate blood. I'll personally take
At least
charge.
even if it's small for a baby.
Yeah, that would work.
Okay. All right, now let's talk about blood grouping.
Okay.
Who can donate to who and how does that work? My husband's blood group is so strange. It's a B positive. Like, I'm everywhere. I give to everybody.
Okay, so that's an interesting question, and I'm glad you asked that, because just as you're everywhere, there's also a problem with being everywhere.
Yeah, I can all receive.
Most commonly, we use the ABO and Rhesus blood group system. That's two blood group systems that go together because they are very closely related. So in the ABO system, it's a differentiation based on antigen antibody placement, but that's extreme science. Let's not get into it. So for the person who doesn't know all of these science, all you need to know is there's A, there's B, there's AB, and there's O as 4 blood types in the ABO system. However, the Rhesus system now has positive and negative.
Okay.
So when you put it together, you can now have these 4 but broken into positive and negative. So you can have O positive, O negative, A positive, A negative, and so on and so forth. Now, I'm tempted to explain the deep things of the science, but I would try and make it very simple. Most persons think that the most popular or the universal blood donor is O positive, but that's very wrong. The universal blood donor is actually O negative for the most part. And that O negative can donate to any of the blood groups, especially when red cells are implicated, right? So if you are going to do any transfusion that involves red cells, O negative can always give to anybody, right, for the most part. So that's one. Then the universal recipient, the one that can receive, from anybody is AB negative, AB positive. AB positive can receive from any blood group whatsoever.
Yeah.
So regardless of who is donating, AB positive, beg your pardon, can always receive. Whereas for all the others, O positive can receive from O positive and O negative, right? A and B can only receive from A or O, B or O. Regardless, well, the Rhesus negative and Rhesus factor will then factor. I'll give you an example. Rhesus negatives can always give to Rhesus positives, but Rhesus positives cannot give to Rhesus negatives. Do you understand it?
Yeah.
Because there will be that Rhesus rejection, right, that would exist. So these are all of the factors that you have to do when you are doing cross-matching. So at the point of taking donor's blood, you have to even type to be sure what the blood group is to determine what can be given. So if the patient is A positive, for example, and is receiving any donation that will involve red cell, I know that I must give an A positive blood, A negative blood, O positive blood, or O negative blood. And the beautiful thing about being a universal donor like O negative is you can only receive from O negative. So the persons who can help us at any point in time,
When they need help.
it's a tricky thing.
Wow.
Especially because they are not as common. One of the rarest blood types to find are O negatives, B negatives, and AB negatives. They are very difficult to find. You can relatively easily get A positive, A negative, but for O negatives, B negatives, and AB negatives, tricky to find.
Interesting.
So then, the problem we would have in the hospitals are availability of this blood. For
Exactly.
transfusion.
There will be lots of shortages.
Exactly. So when you consider the fact that a lot of Nigerians don't donate blood, there's a significant problem. So the number of persons who need blood versus the available blood. Don't also forget that there are instances where you would require fresh blood. There are persons who are in maybe trauma victims, persons who are actively bleeding. They will either require fresh blood, fresh whole blood, or maybe fresh frozen plasma, which is a blood derivative. So if you cannot get all of these, and of course the blood, you have blood in your bank, but you do not have fresh blood, you notice that you may be transfusing blood, but of course the output, the effect on the patient may not be as good as if you had this blood fresh. Maybe the blood was donated 3 days ago, 10 days ago, but was properly stored. It's still good, but for that patient it may not be best. So these are the factors that affect. So we're always advocating, and that's why days like today are very important in this crusade, because we need more persons to realize that they are going around with something that is life-saving, something that can help a lot of individuals.
Okay, now let's talk about some technologies. The last time we talked about these, I think that was 2 or 3 years ago. You brought some videos, and at least even though they've always disqualified me from the interview part of the donation, I was able to see how it's done. I saw one machine going like this, and the blood was shaking and all that. But are there emerging technologies that you all use for this process, and do we have them in Nigeria?
Okay, I'll tell you one of my favorites. My favorite is a apheresis machine. Is still relatively emerging in Nigeria. It's old technology in my opinion, but it's still relatively emerging. It makes it easier for you to maximize your output in blood donation. For example, I've been talking about blood donation in specialized donations. If I needed only platelets for a particular patient, why take whole blood?
Carry plasma, carry everything.
And then go and separate. And of course, whole blood is typically in the biggest bag is like 450 mils. So once I've separated, I get less volume of plasma if the blood is really good. So I may need several donations to get significant yield in a patient who needs platelet concentrate. Whereas I can simply take a donor and utilize this apheresis machine and get the exact concentration of platelets. And guess the best part? I don't take the red cells, I don't take the white cells, I don't take any other needless cells. So whereas you donate a pint of blood and lose maybe about 3% of your total packed cell volume, you may just lose just one. And of course you still feel fit as a fiddle and good to go. It's one of my favorite technologies that is helping blood donation. The only downside therein is it may take some time, a longer time than regular donation. And of course it would exclude persons who are not, whose BMI isn't very great. If you are short, you know, no offense to persons who are vertically challenged, but if you are not so tall, it will take longer time to make that sort of donation, as against a person who is taller and relatively bigger.
Now you sabi. Okay, let's talk a little bit about your experience so far and some myths and misconceptions people have about blood donation. And there might be someone watching us right now that has an idea in mind and they're so stuck on it, and that's why we never donate, that's why I will never donate, that's why I will go again today. Let them tell me no first before I assume it's going to still be no. But what are some myths that you've encountered so far and you want to clear from our minds?
My blood nourish. Like that is the first thing a lot of persons will tell you. My blood nourish.
I not get blood. As I slim, so no blood.
Yeah, see me, so I just tiny and not get blood.
Okay.
That's a very popular thing. It's not always visible. Maybe for us in the profession, we may be able to do certain experience analysis and say, okay, this person may not. But it's difficult for you as an individual to know whether you have enough blood to donate. And of course, professionally speaking, I would not, because my license will be on the line, I would not take blood from a person who should not have donated blood, because if anything happens to that individual, it's on me and my license, right? So we have to learn to trust our caregivers or healthcare providers that they will do the best. So that's a popular one. There's also those who would not donate for religious reasons. I'm not going to speak significantly on that, but what I'm going to say are those who believe that certain things will be transferred, for lack of a better explanation, prowess. Some persons believe that their essence as individual will go to the other person, or it would sort of reverse or transfer. I've not seen that in practice. So till
We're very spiritual people in Nigeria.
so that is a problem. There are those who believe certain other things will be transferred. So if the person has this disposition, if he's a thief, for example, we transfuse the person's blood, they too become thieves, or they have the susceptibility to stealing. You know, there are things like that. And then more importantly, there are people who think if they donate blood, they will never be okay again. Because they donated blood that day, that's why their life has changed, and this one is not functioning the way it's supposed to function. Like I explained at the outset, there are a lot of due diligence that's done. There's a lot of what's it called, investigation that is done to be sure that you actually can donate blood. And of course, persons who are going to donate blood are encouraged to eat, to drink a lot of water, and there really is no special recovery protocol to be taken when you donate blood. Eat, of course, you would not engage in too much strain, right? Because especially for first-time donors, your body may take some time to adjust. But for the most part, it's to eat, drink a lot of water, and go
And
out
you're
to
good to go.
life.
All right. Now, usually when we go for this donation, we need a medical lab scientist, and we just assume that's all they do: take blood, take blood, take blood. They're vampires, you know. They're always collecting blood. But are they? And it could also be reasons why many people don't want to study med lab. They just want to do medicine, family medicine, general medicine, and all that. But do your duties go beyond collecting blood? How does it relate to other fields of medicine?
Okay, so essentially, the medical laboratory scientist is a diagnostic professional. So,
Okay.
yes, so the essence of being a medical lab scientist is investigation to help with the diagnosis of all kinds of.
So it's not
medical
just to
conditions.
take our blood
Well,
only.
taking blood is also important because some of these things are diagnosable from your blood. So
Okay.
the professional who is going to investigate should know how to collect, right? So a lot of things are done, but I need to also emphasize that there are different disciplines within medical lab. So hematology and blood transfusion science is just one, and we are the ones who make the most noise about blood donation, right? Because we understand, especially for those who are more partial to transfusion science, they would always need a blood bank, and they understand the demand that comes with blood availability and, of course, lack of it therein. So they make a lot of agitations about the need to donate blood. But the more hematologically inclined persons would focus more on the diagnosis. That's where you now talk about full blood count, you talk about bone marrow aspiration and leukemia and all of those things. But there's also chemical pathology where you talk about things like liver function. Those ones who rarely do a lot of things with whole blood. They'll mostly focus on the chemistry of your blood, right? So they'll work more with serum and plasma. And then you have medical microbiology that do culture, right? For the most part, they are the ones who grow the microbes in your body, whether it's blood, whether it is sputum, whether it is just the swab. They can even just shake you, swab your hand, and find out what's growing on your palm. You know? So anything microorganism, they are the custodians. And of course, you have the histopathologists and the cytopathologists who do tissues. They are the ones who chase cancer all over the place to find out specifically, what's growing here, what's growing there, what's disturbing you.
Okay. So what challenges are you facing in this profession?
Well, every profession has its challenges. But essentially, I think, it's my opinion, that I think the profession needs to be more visible. The average Nigerian thinks everybody who works in the hospital is a doctor. It's a medical
nurse.
doctor or a nurse. And not much is known about a lot of other professions that complement. We have a lot of newer professions breaking in, they are distinct. So a lot of that is not known. Of course, healthcare delivery is teamwork. So the synergy with other professions, I think it can be improved on, right? That mutual understanding and cooperation, I think it definitely can be better.
Okay, since we're almost leaving the studio now, in recent years, the advocate for blood donation, the sensitization, the increase in awareness has reached a good high. We've seen them on the news and all that, but have you seen remarkable results from this awareness campaign that you started, that your profession started years ago? And so far so good. Just use the opportunity to talk about how crucial these issue of diversity is in the old donation arrangement?
If I'm to talk about improvement, I say one of the biggest improvements I would count as a gain is when you donate blood. For me, that's going to be, I know for a fact that certain persons from radio, certain member of staff here have donated blood.
Yeah.
I've personally been there to oversee that. So, but maybe your donation will be a defining moment.
Okay, we'll
so
try again today.
So that's one. But there's a constant need for blood. I work somewhere. I know the things that I see on a daily basis. I know what it feels like when you tell a patient's relative, for example, that we don't have blood, or you need to go and find someone who will donate because of the availability, or when you see a child who is rushed maybe from a neighboring state and they say they don't have anybody here, they can't get blood, maybe it's a child in crisis or a cancer patient. Just today I got a call from someone whose mother is going to undergo chemotherapy and many things implicated therein. So when you see the demand for blood and the supply doesn't meet with it, I think it breaks my heart significantly, and more so because you know that you're dealing with the lives of individuals, and you know that people can die for not getting this blood donated. They're not getting this blood very readily available. And really, not a lot of persons understand these needs till they have patients in the hospital.
True.
So it's been said multiple times, if you want to appreciate your life, go and see those who are suffering, go to the hospital and all that, go to burials, right? So I think I would encourage as many persons as possible, go to any hospital around you, go and see how people suffer, you know, for not getting, and maybe that may motivate you to donate blood. I don't want to say wait till you have a patient who is in the hospital, because that may be calling for.
Okay, but how do we support this campaign, especially for those who, for one reason or the other, cannot donate, especially women, the pregnant, the nursing, those who are currently menstruating and all of that? So how can we also support this?
If you're pregnant, encourage your husband to donate.
Oh, okay.
Encourage your brothers to donate.
And your
encourage
baby papa.
Your sisters. Encourage. It's one thing to not be able to do something.
Yeah.
It's another thing to inspire other people. I keep telling people, one of the best things you can do, if it's your birthday, beyond posting a wish list on social media and all that, beyond doing giveaway, if you have a lot of money, donate a pint of blood. Just one. And obviously 1 pint of blood can get to as much as 3 persons.
Really?
Yes. If you are going to get derivatives from that 1 pint of blood, at least 3 persons can share the different products that can be gotten from 1 pint of blood. So that is giving back, that is saving lives, that is helping people. Yes, there are persons who would benefit from maybe money you give them to go and eat, but what more? I think it's bigger value when you save a person's life because the person is actually struggling for it. So I think persons should look in that direction. I encourage influencers, persons who are big. Cristiano Ronaldo is a good example of blood donation. He does a lot of blood donation, but I don't think he's done as much to encourage people. Imagine those who are his fans when they do this argument of Ronaldo versus Messi. And if he says, all my fans, I encourage people to go and donate blood.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of mobilization, a lot of social mobilization. So our Nigerian influencers can do the same thing as well. And when we start doing that, I think the understanding will get into people's heads. Persons who think their blood will be sold can understand better how the process works. And I think we'll be able to meet up with our quota for blood supply.
I want to say thank you for taking our time for this awareness. I know a lot of people have learned a lot and they know better now. So, you know, if you missed any parts of this discussion, it's really very crucial that you didn't miss a part. So we're uploading on YouTube so you can catch up and get yourself enlightened and informed. So from this evening, just go to our YouTube page, check our playlist, look for Flipside, and you see all of our videos there, this one and even the ones we've done years ahead. All right, but before we leave you, oh no, we're leaving right now. We're going to leave you now with the last message from the United Nations, where they shared a few myths about blood donation. We've said some, so we'll just remind you people that these things shouldn't stop you from donating. At least go there first, let them tell you you cannot donate, okay? And that's how we're going to leave you today with that video.
Common myths about blood donation. I can't donate because I have low iron. Your red blood cell count doesn't stay low forever. Come in and see if it has improved. Iron-rich foods help promote blood production. Citrus fruits help your body absorb iron. Dark, leafy green vegetables are a good source of iron. Lean red meat, as well as salmon and tuna, are good sources of iron. I can't donate because I'm diabetic. Diabetics may donate blood, even if they take medication. Oral medication is acceptable. Insulin-dependent diabetics may donate, provided they have not used beef source insulin since the 1st of January 1980. I can't donate because I have high blood pressure. As long as your blood pressure is below 180 systolic and 100 diastolic, you may donate. Medications taken for high blood pressure do not disqualify you from donating. I can't donate because I take medication. Most medication will not disqualify you as a blood donor. You may donate if you take aspirin, birth control pills, or high blood pressure medications. You may donate 24 hours following your last dose of antibiotics and are symptom-free. We can provide a complete listing of medication deferrals upon request. I can't donate because I have high cholesterol. A high cholesterol number does not disqualify you from donating, even if medication is used to control it. I can't donate because I have a tattoo. Donors who have a tattoo or permanent makeup may donate if it was performed by a licensed tattoo artist in Ohio, Kentucky, or Indiana. A complete listing of acceptable states can be provided upon request. The tattoo site must be clean, dry, and pain-free, or the donor is deferred until the site is healed. If the tattoo or permanent makeup was not applied by a licensed artist, donors are deferred for 12 months from the date of the application.